Our story begins in the year 32 before what would be the Battle of Yavin in the original timeline. A special session of the Senate had been called, and in attendance were a group of Jedi Masters. Yoda, Mace Windu, Adi Gallia, Sifo-Dyas, and Jorah Sabaoth were all in attendance. They were met by a frequent ally of Senator Palpatine of Naboo, the Moon financier Higo Damask. The Jedi knew that Damask and Palpatine were losing faith in the Old Republic as it currently functioned, and they were bastions of hope for change in the corrupt Senate. Damask pulled aside Master Sifo-Dyas, who was the Jedi he was most familiar with out of the group, and had a proposal for him. "Master Sifo-Dyas," Higo said, "you and the other Jedi must sense what I've come to suspect. There's a dark time coming for the Republic, and I fear it may be unavoidable. But I've learned of scientists on Camino who may be of a great help to us." "What are you proposing, Damask?" said Sifo-Dyas. He was a bit perplexed as to why he was singled out. "They're cloners. With the Jedi Order already stretched thin, they can create a grand army of the Republic from one single host. I don't represent the Republic or Jedi, but I can provide you the funding necessary through Damask Holdings to place the order. The Republic is counting on you, Master Jedi," Damask told him. Sifo was unsure of what to do next, but he replied calmly and plainly, "I will meditate on what you've told me and will contact you tomorrow should I accept your offer." The Jedi Master then left the rest of the group at the Senate building and returned to the Jedi Temple. He did self-meditate, but he also sought the advice of his closest ally in the Order, the maverick Jedi Master Dooku. The two met and discussed what Damask had proposed. Dooku wholeheartedly agreed. They both knew Damask was right, as they had already discussed the inevitable dark times on numerous occasions. Sifo-Dyas reached out the following day and secured his funding from Damask Holdings and made haste for Camino. He told no one in the council and no one in the Order, save Dooku alone. Upon arriving to Camino, Master Sifo-Dyas spoke to Prime Minister Lama Su. He told him he came on behalf of the Jedi Council and had the funds to commission a clone army for the Republic because the Jedi Knights were stretched thin across the galaxy. The Kaminoans relished the chance to work with the Republic. The only thing they cared more about than science was money, and the Republic was the major power in the galaxy. Their pocketbooks would be deep. "You've made a good choice coming to us, Master Jedi. Our cloning science is the most advanced in the universe. We can have the first batch of soldiers ready in 10 years' time. Who do you wish to be the host?" Lama Su spoke. Sifo-Dyas replied, "My friend Master Dooku has hired a man to be the host. He is the Mandalorian bounty hunter Jango Fett, and he will arrive this week. Master Dooku will also be in contact with your people to regularly check in on progress. If there is nothing else you require of me, Prime Minister, I must return to Coruscant." Lama Su wished him well on his way and passed on the order to his science division. Back on Coruscant, in a tower in the industrial sector, the current Sith apprentice of the Rule of Two, Darth Sidious, sat in a deep meditation. Today was a monumental day for the Sith, and for him personally. His plans were threefold: 2 deaths and an election. It was now time to enact the first phase. The Sith Lord focused on the great tree within the courtyard of the Jedi Temple. This tree would become the anchor for his Force Phantom, a physical body manifestation of Sidious's consciousness that was now inside the temple. The true Sidious controlled his Phantom like a marionette, and the Sith Lord's power in the Force was split between his own body and the Phantom's. As it was an extension of his will, he could have it take the appearance of anyone, living or dead. He chose to take the form of a nondescript human male Jedi, with standard light tunics and a dark brown robe with the hood up. Sidious' Force concealment was legendary, and this was not the first time he'd been in the presence of Jedi undetected. The Jedi Grandmaster, Yoda, was sitting deep in meditation in his chambers as he often did, blissfully unaware of the snap. Yoda's neck snapped and tore his brainstem in two, killing the Jedi instantly. The shockwave of Yoda's death echoed in the Force throughout the Jedi Temple. Every single Jedi inside felt their leader's life blink out in an instant. Sidious Puppet entered an elevator and evaporated. Sidious exited his meditation and smiled. The first phase was complete. Later that day, in the Galactic Senate, a new Chancellor was set to be elected. A few days prior, Queen Amidala of the Naboo called for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Finis Valorum. The vote passed with flying colors. Though Bail Antilles of Alderaan was a quality candidate, the overwhelming majority voted for the strongest candidate. Palpatine of Naboo was now the new Chancellor of the Republic. Following a rousing acceptance speech, Chancellor Palpatine adjourned the Senate early for the day. Sidious celebrated with his master, the Dark Lord Darth Plagueis the Wise, in his secret apartment at 500 Republica. Phase 2 was complete. Palpatine had been elected Chancellor. Now it was time for the third phase. The pair began to drink, and Sidious made certain he was pouring every single drink. After a couple hours, he had barely consumed any alcohol, but Plagueis was completely intoxicated and fell into a deep sleep for the first time in decades. Now was the time to strike. Sidious lashed out against his sleeping master with a torrent of Force lightning. The overwhelming electrical impulse charred flesh, destroyed Plagueis' respirator, and woke the drunken lord from his slumber. Plagueis was shaken up and confused, but Sidious stood firm. He extended both hands and drained every last bit of life from the Dark Lord. Plagueis could save others from death, but not himself. When his life was extinguished, his spirit passed into Sidious as all the Sith lived in him. Phase 3 was complete, and Sidious's monumental day had gone exactly according to plan. Back at the Jedi Temple, news of Yoda's death spread like wildfire. One Jedi Temple guard, a Pauan male named Charon, was the first to open the chamber doors and find Yoda's cloak on the ground. He informed the Jedi High Council immediately, and they knew that Yoda's body and spirit had already transformed into the Force. As the council began discussing what possibly could have happened, many theories began to circle. Perhaps Yoda simply embraced the end and allowed himself to pass on. Perhaps he succumbed to a disease he told no one about. Or perhaps his death had something to do with the return of the Sith that Qui-Gon had told them of after his return from Naboo and Tatooine. That last theory had quite the intrigue to it. As they continued discussing, the council chamber doors opened, and Master Dooku and his Padawan Komari Vosa entered. They were both visibly shaken by the death of the Grand Master. Yoda had personally trained Dooku as his Padawan, after all, and was a strong guiding hand in the training of Qui-Gon before, and Komari now. Dooku spoke first. "I cannot go on," he said. "My master's death has made me unbalanced. I warned this body of the growing dark threat for years, and you never heard me. Now Yoda has passed, the Sith have returned, and I can no longer be a Jedi for the time being. I must go on my own journey." Dooku was very emotional, which was a rarity for him. His peers in the council always saw his stoic side. Komari added, "I wish to follow my master in his personal quest. I will help him find his balance again, but it cannot be done if we remain here." Mace Windu, the Master of the Order, chimed in and said, "We understand that this is a trying time for everyone. We will unravel what happened to Yoda, and we will stop the Sith. I may not have fully believed Qui-Gon days ago, but now I see that there are many things at play which we do not know the truth of. I suggest you both take a Barash vow so that you may find balance in your communion with the Force. We will handle the Jedi affairs." "We will do as you ask, and as the Force wills," replied Dooku. The master and apprentice bowed to the council and exited the chambers. The council continued their discussion, and Master Depa Billaba suggested that they elect a new Grand Master in the wake of Yoda's passing. Master Oppo Rancisis seconded the suggestion, and he said, While Master Poof and I have served on this council longer than the rest of you, it is quite clear to me who is the strongest, wisest, and most stalwart member. That member is you, Master Windu. All in favor of electing Master Mace Windu as our new Grand Master." Eyes rang out among the whole body, even from the typical contrarians in Ki-Adi-Mundi and Evan Peel. "I graciously and humbly accept this role as Grand Master, and I will follow the will of the Force for the good of all people. I would like to appoint Master Plo Koon to my former role as Master of the Order," Mace announced. Plo graciously accepted. Mace continued, "It is critical that we deal with the Trade Federation crisis on Naboo immediately. We must revisit our decision about Anakin Skywalker, and we must elect a new member." Yaddle spoke up from among the group. "With the Sith hot on the trail of the Queen of Naboo and Qui-Gon, I suggest we take extreme care. It would be unwise to send even a trials-ready Padawan back to Naboo. I will go with Master Jin, and if we are faced with a Sith, with the Council's permission, I think it best we eliminate them." "Granted, Master Yaddle," Mace replied. "It is critical that two Masters face the Sith. All of their dark power is contained within two, a Master and an apprentice. As for Skywalker, we can discuss and let Qui-Gon know our decision when he returns. Now, let us elect our new member." 7 votes were cast for Joruus C'baoth, 3 votes for Qui-Gon Jinn, and 1 vote for Rowan Shrine. The council contacted Master C'baoth and invited him to the council chamber. When he entered, Mace informed him of the election. "Master C'baoth, you've been chosen to join the Jedi High Council. Take your seat. Due to your pre-existing relationship with the new Chancellor, Palpatine, I am appointing you to be the Chancellor's advisor on Jedi-related affairs." Joruus responded and took his seat. "I accept this. A close eye must be kept on Palpatine. He has always seemed different than most politicians. Thank you, Master Windu, and thank you all, Masters, for allowing me to be among this body. I do not take this lightly." Mace spoke. "Over the last year, I've been doing research into lightsaber combat and the existing 7 forms that we recognize. Over the next few years, especially with the rising threat of the Sith, I will develop a new variant of the 7th form. One of Form 7's downfalls is that in order to achieve the maximum output, you must give yourself over to aggressive feelings. With the help of my Padawan, Baylan Skoll, and Master Sora Bulk, we will create a variant of Form 7 that channels the dark emotions of our dueling opponents through our blade work to use it against them." "Of all the Jedi in the Order," Plo Koon spoke up, "you are the one that I trust the most with this dangerous advancement, Master Windu. May the Force guide you, Sora, and Baylan in your training." Later, Qui-Gon Jinn and Yaddle traveled back to Naboo alongside Queen Amidala. After kneeling before the Gungan chieftain, Big Boss Nass, the two peoples of the Naboo came together and overcame the droid armies of the Trade Federation. The Queen and the Jedi made their way back to Theed Palace, but before they could secure it, they came face to face with the Sith Qui-Gon had faced days earlier in the Tatooine desert, Darth Maul. The Queen and her men went onward to the throne room, but Lord Maul confronted the Jedi. He said nothing, but spun his elongated lightsaber hilt, and his twin red blades sprung forth from each side. The Jedi Masters met his gaze, and their green blades sprung to life. After a brief stare-off, the duel was on. Maul was a master of Form 7, Juyo, and was ferocious and terrifying in a duel. His aggressive moments were more than the Jedi Masters had faced in years. Neither of them, save that short encounter days ago, had ever fought a Sith Lord. Jin and Yaddle were consummate masters of Form 4, Ataru, a fast-paced and acrobatic style, but based on the pair's vast differences in body structure, they each tailored the form to suit their own needs. The duel was fierce, starting in the hangar bay and moving through the reactor rooms. Swings, chops, and kicks kept flying. Jin typically stayed grounded and strong, but Maul and Yaddle were jumping and flipping about. Finally, the two Jedi backed the young Sith Lord into a corner and initiated a blade lock. Maul was hyper-focused on Jin, not wanting to let the Jedi Master get away again, but he failed to notice the genius of Master Yaddle. Using the ancient Trikata technique, she deactivated her saber briefly to disengage her blade from Maul's bottom blade. Yaddle leaped and reactivated her blade, cleaving through the back of Maul's head. The Sith Lord dropped dead in a heap. "There was no other way, Qui-Gon," she said. "He would have killed us if we let this duel drag on. The Sith cannot be trifled with, and now that we know they've returned, we now have targets on our backs." "I wish there could have been another way," Jin responded, "but you are always mindful of the living force. Perhaps he will find peace in death." Meanwhile, having been called away to another mission before he could return to Coruscant, Master Sifo-Dyas was needed to settle a criminal gang dispute on Obadiah. He was always a tactful negotiator. Unfortunately for him, this time would be different. The Pike Syndicate had been tipped off that the Jedi Master would be arriving. They shot down his starfighter. It burned up on entry to the planet, and the Syndicate recovered his body. Higher powers were at play, and they hired the Trandoshan bounty hunter Bosk to transport the remains to the Count of Sereno. Bosk asked no questions, accepted his high payment, and made the delivery. Upon the Naboo's victory over the Trade Federation, the Jedi returned back to Coruscant, and a traditional cremation vigil was held for the dearly departed Master Yoda. His body was no longer present as it had transformed into the Force, but they kept to their traditions. Tears were shed by many, but his voice could faintly be heard throughout the room. "Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not." After the vigil concluded, the Jedi returned to the business at hand. The Council and Qui-Gon returned to the Council chamber. Yaddle gave a report on what transpired on Naboo. "We faced the same Sith that Qui-Gon escaped on Tatooine, and he pushed us to the brink. Ultimately, we did defeat and kill him. There was no other way, and he gave us no information. Now the Sith have revealed themselves, and we must be on high alert." Qui-Gon began to speak up. "This is why I must train the boy. Obi-Wan is ready for the trials, and I will take Anakin as my Padawan learner." Mace contemplated for a few moments before answering. "The Council trusts you, Master Qui-Gon. If you say your Padawan is ready for the trials, he may take them. If this boy really is the chosen one, it's a risk we have to take in order for the Force to be brought back into balance. You may take young Skywalker as your student. Go now, and give the news to them both." Qui-Gon exited the chambers, and Mace addressed the rest of the Council. "I trust you'll all support this decision." Ki-Adi-Mundi scowled, but Mace wasn't looking in his direction. "It's important that we start investigating Master Yoda's death." This concludes part 1 of our story. Stay tuned for parts 2 and 3, as they will be on their way very soon.